welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I'm Jessica. I am your host. And it's so funny because I think my computer is possessed, which is appropriate because of this, the book that we're going to talk about. We just had a heck of a time trying to connect. So I'm really excited to talk to the author today of this book, which involves a possessed cat and a library and a whole bunch of really fun plays on different cozy mystery tropes and demonic possession tropes. So welcome, C.M. Waggoner. Tell us about this book.
Hi, it's great to be here. The book is called The Village Library Demon Hunting Society, and it's about a humble local librarian named Sherry Pinkwhistle who lives in a small town in upstate New York and has a little side hobby of solving murders. And she's having a great time. She's really enjoying herself. She's very good at her solving murder hobby. And then something happens and it all of a sudden occurs to her that there's something very wrong going on here, that there really shouldn't be quite so many murders in the tiny town of Winesap, New York. And then after some further investigation, it's revealed to her that they have some demon problems. So that's the main setup of the book.
So, I mean, it is fun in the sense that, it really does start off as your classic cozy mystery. You have this woman and she's older and she lives in a cute little town and there's a murder and she solves it and everybody's totally cool with this. Everybody's just like, yes, thank you, older woman, for solving this murder that the police clearly could not do, which is the premise for so many cozy mysteries, including Murder, She Wrote, which you talk a little bit about in the book. I think you mentioned that one or two times, or maybe that was in my mind.
I think Murder, She Wrote and Agatha Christie
Okay,
both.
yes. I was like, no, I'm not making that up. I remember
Yeah,
there
Murder, She
is a
Wrote, Agatha
line
Christie,
about Murder, She Wrote.
Columbo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There is a line about Murder, She Wrote in the book. But it really is like the setup where you wonder with these series, like, hey, why is it that this really sweet little town has all of these murders and an inept police department that can't seem to solve them, but this older woman can? So, she's, Sherry, and she has the perfect cozy mystery solving name, by the way. Where did
Thank
you
you.
come up with her name?
I honestly don't remember. I think I was just trying to come up with a combination of names that had that sort of cozy mystery vibe where it's right on the verge of not really being a realistic name at all. Like it couldn't really be a person named this. But
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, no, she's having a great time solving murders, and she has a boyfriend who is not her boyfriend, but is her boyfriend. And she's a librarian, which is great for her because it's a great job. I can tell you that from experience. But yeah, then something happens, and I don't want to say what because I was very surprised about what happened. And it turns out that it is not such a happy or unhappy coincidence for everybody consequentially around Sherry who's getting murdered. And she seems to be she seems to be the one who's solving them but not involved in them, which is a whole other thing altogether. But it's really, really clever and it was fun. And as all fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer know, mysteries and demonic possession in libraries all go together very, very well.
true, yeah.
So where did the whole premise of this story come from?
It was initially back in early pandemic in 2020 when we were all really stuck at home. I spent a while binging Murder, She Wrote. I never watched it. I had like a memory of my grandma watching it when I was a little kid. And so I decided, like, I saw it was streaming somewhere and I thought, what the heck, I'll watch this. And I really enjoyed it. I've always loved cozy mysteries. And as I was watching, I think I kind of like idly Googled the show, just like wanting to know a little bit more about it. And I found these old articles from the 90s talking about how someone like crunched the numbers and figured out that if like Cabot Cove was a real place, it would be like the murder capital of the world. Like it has this incredibly violent town. And it's something that I've always thought was very funny about cozy mysteries. Like every time Miss Marple goes on vacation, someone just happens to get murdered in like a really weird, elaborate way that the police can't figure out. And everyone just sort of takes that in their stride. There's no one has ever like, is Miss Marple a serial killer? Like, or like, is someone in Jessica Fletcher's life just like a lunatic who murders people so she has something to solve or whatever? No, it just goes, it's part of the genre that no one comments or questions this at all. And so I decided it'd be like very fun to write a book where that is brought into question and the explanation is supernatural.
So when it comes to this, the band of people who Sherry ends up putting together, it's very, there's a lot of like just very funny plays, a few funny tropes. You have the priest, and you have, I guess, the witch, and it's like the craziest band of adult Scoobies ever. And then you have her cat, who is, I don't know, possibly the possessed by somebody from centuries ago, but also possibly just a really bad actor. So where did all of the people kind of come in, and the creatures all kind of come in your writing process?
Like for the priest, Father Barry, I kind of knew that he was going to be in there right from the beginning, just because in both cozy mysteries and demonic possession stories, like in like a lot of classic cozy mysteries, there's like, like the vicar or whatever is always a character. And then in an exorcism story, you have to have a priest to be the exorcist. So he had to be in there, despite the fact that he didn't go to that seminar and doesn't know how to exercise. And then I have one character who's, the one of the survivors of a victim, which I think is also like if you're reading a Miss Marple or a Poirot or whatever, there's often a character who is sort of under suspicion, but then becomes kind of a little helper. And then just Sherry's good friend, who's the designated skeptic who thinks that maybe Sherry's just losing it. And the cat, initially, I think in my very early drafts, the cat was less of a important figure. And then he immediately became clear that he was going to have more of a role to play because he was a lot of fun.
The mystery itself and just sort of how everything unfolded, did it unfold naturally for you, or did you work backwards from that point? Because just the idea of having this cool concept of a cozy mystery, but everything under the surface is not exactly is not what one would think of with a cozy mystery. It's like you have your very perfect trope with all the doilies and the frills and the local characters, and then you have demonic possession underneath. The mystery part of it, did you work backwards, or did you figure things out as it was going along?
When I was writing it, I was like very clear with myself that I didn't want it just to be a supernatural story with the cozy mystery thing as like a gimmick. I wanted it to really, because I knew that people who read cozy mysteries would be reading this, and people have high standards. Like people who have read a lot of Agatha Christie's aren't going to let you get away with writing a terrible mystery story that doesn't function. So I wanted to make sure it really functioned as a cozy mystery in addition to having the supernatural stuff. I had the main, I knew who did it. I knew who did my main murder. And I knew how it was done. And then did have to kind of work my way through and figure out, okay, like how does Sherry figure this out? What clues can there be? What are the other suspects and that kind of thing. But I did have my basic idea for the way I wanted the murder to worked out before I started.
Did you ever feel like one aspect of the story was fighting cohesively with the other? Like, did you ever feel like the supernatural aspect of it was overtaking, or the mystery aspect was overtaking, and kind of have to just iron out the edges of that?
Yeah, well, I think that because of just the mechanics of the way a murder mystery story works, there's a lot of moving parts. So that did kind of dominate, and I had to go back through and like think about how I could like really weave more of the supernatural stuff into the book to make sure it wasn't just sort of like a little bit thrown in at the end or whatever. I really tried to have there be kind of clues of something weird going on from the very first pages, which hopefully readers can pick up on, maybe especially on a reread. You'll notice some of the things that I stuck in there that are supposed to be a little bit odd.
So it just in general, this is not your first book, right?
No, no.
Would we see more of this world? Are you
Um,
hoping to make this a series?
I definitely like deliberately left it open for that possibility because I thought it could be fun. I don't know if I'll necessarily if Sherry will necessarily be in the same genre in the future because like as there's like the sort of explanation at the end that the fact that she lives inside of a cozy mystery novel series was externally imposed on her kind of, and so she could find herself bumbling her way into I don't know like an urban fantasy or something like that in the future, possibly more cozy stuff, but I think it could be fun for her to try on some different things also.
I mean, and I love just playing with meta in general in that
Yeah.
way. I think it's one of my, I mean, it's one of my favorite tropes, and it's been done in so many creative ways, and this is, again, it's just extremely creative. Really, I mean, so if it was like you, what genre would you want to stumble into, or what do you think, like what do you think you would want?
Oh, if I could live in a genre? I'm not really sure because if I mean, being one of the side characters in a cozy mystery would probably be pretty nice, but then you run the risk of getting murdered, right? Um, like a lot of genres, like what powers them is bad things happening, so you'd be constantly in peril, right? You don't want to be like one of like the people who are just like wandering through the back of a scene in a fantasy novel because you're gonna get eaten by a dragon or something. Like, and I don't know if I have it in me to be the protagonist. I feel like I definitely would be like the flower vendor on the side who gets torched by the dragon.
Yeah, no, I think that that's kind of something that you always must think of when you're thinking about just genre in general. And like you get to live as in these characters' world. But I mean, I'm not sure if you're of the never ending story generation, but do you really want to be the main character of that story? Like, do you really want to be going through
Seems
the trauma?
stressful, right? Yeah.
Yeah, extremely, extremely, extremely stressful. And
Honestly, like, I enjoy reading all sorts of very stressful things. But if I had to pick a genre to live in, I'm living in a Hallmark movie, right? Like in like the lovely little walkable town where nothing really bad happens and like I somehow own a profitable Christmas tree farm.
right, but then like do you like that's too perfect, right? Like I feel like that's almost like in and of itself. I mean, like not to throw any ideas out there, but like what if the Hallmark towns are all like cult towns or something?
Yeah.
They're so
Yeah, it's all the
perfect.
Truman Show. You like walk out and there's like a dome around the outside of the
I,
town
I
that
exactly, like the ex-boyfriend always shows up with that tree at the exact same, the exact right time, and there's always a gazebo. But no, I get it. I get it.
Hmm.
And I think about it also because I mean I did really feel for Sherry, and you're just like, well, who wants to be her protagonist, really? Like,
It's a lot of work. You can't
it's a
just
lot
hang
of
out and
work.
chill.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could have a book where the protagonist doesn't do anything, but the readers would probably object. Like a book about someone just having a really nice time. No stress.
No stress. Yeah, no, for sure. But no, it was really fun. And, there was just some really fun bits of dialogue in there. And I don't want to say them because I want people to read it because it really was very laugh out loud funny. But yeah, are you if not, Sherry, are you working on something else coming
I
up?
am. I actually have more than one thing going on right now. I have another like a second world fantasy novel that I'm hard at work on, which is going to like if you like my playing around with the genre, there's going to be a lot of that in this one. There's going to be people from different genres, maybe you could say, encountering each other, and a lot of kind of I think all of my books have a little bit of like one of the main questions of all my books is like who is the protagonist and why? Like who gets to be the protagonist of a story? And I think this one digs into that a bit too. And I also have a very silly little novella, which is sort of a fairy tale pastiche, which is something that I always think is very fun. And that I hope will also be seeing the light of day very soon.
Awesome. Definitely check out this book. It's super fun. I really liked it. It's nice with a cup of tea or coffee. And it's also a little it's also a little scary. It's also a little creepy. I liked
For
it. It was
spooky
great.
season,
For spooky season.
a little treat for
Absolutely.
spooky season.
A very nice treat. A very nice treat. Like yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This book was fun. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
And
you.
once again, this was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. My guest was,
CM Waggoner.
and we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.